Hey everybody, welcome to a little tutorial that I'm going to be showing you about how to work with Photoshop. Now Photoshop is completely different than Illustrator, so I don't want you thinking like this is going to be pretty similar. So we've done a lot with Illustrator and you did a great job with that. Now we're getting into Photoshop and I kind of want to walk you through the whole process of working with Photoshop and kind of show you some of the differences about what we're going to be doing. Because with Photoshop, we're working a lot more with pictures. And with Illustrator, you kind of start with a picture, but then you draw everything over it, and then you create your own designs. So I've got a couple designs that have been done here, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit. So I'm going to start with open, and I've got this pelican on my desktop. So I'm going to show you, this is what we're going to start with. So we're just a simple pelican picture. And what we've got here, some parts are very similar, some parts are very different. And these are our selection tools. And we're going to be messing around with those things later on, but I kind of want to just visualize and give you a little visual about what we're dealing with here. So we start with a picture. Well, in the past we've kind of drawn over it and created something. But with this, what we're going to be doing is selecting parts and moving things around and changing colors and removing pieces. So there's so many things that we can do with Photoshop that are completely different than Illustrator. And so the advantages of both are very different. But like with the selection tools, so there's different selection tools. There's this one, right? And this will select an area of the picture. And if I want to delete it, well, we won't do that. But then there's other selection tools where if I want to select around something, we can draw this way. Okay, and if I want to select more of it, so now this part's selected, right? And then I'm going to go into my windows. I'm going to go into layers. It's somewhat similar, but somewhat not. Let's try that again. My layers window here. Move this over. Okay, so this is better. So here's my background layer. I'm going to double click on this. And now look, if I delete this, see what happens? It just completely gets rid of it. So I'm going to go back a couple steps. Then I get into, so there's a lasso tool, there's a polygonal lasso tool, where if you want to select straightforward things where it might be a certain line or an edge, this works great if you're trying to select a hockey stick or a golf club. This is fantastic. Or maybe you want to select some of this here. And so it selects it this way. So that's how that piece works. I've got a student who worships this tool. And so to select something, you just draw around it this way. And you can click as much as you want. Sometimes it does everything for you. And so it selects it this way. So you get the idea. I'm just going to keep cruising through here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you can see that some aspects of this work better than others. And so I see by mistake I didn't select the whole beak, so then I've got to click a little bit more and it gets a little bit tricky. So sometimes that doesn't completely work. So then there's some other options that we can use. And this is called our quick selection tool. So you can see already the differences between what we've got in Illustrator versus Photoshop. So there's a lot of different ways to select images. I'm just drawing inside of the bird so you can see how to select pieces. And I'll make my brush size smaller. And by doing that, it's the letter P. Just to the right of the letter P, there's two brackets. And so I can click on those. And so now I've got most of my pelican selected. And then what I can do is I can copy it, I can paste it, I can remove it. But I've done a pretty decent job here. I don't have this part selected. There we go. Now I'm about done with it. So then what I could do is I could go select inverse, press delete, and now I've just got the bird here. And then I can put it in a different picture, I can put it someplace else. There's other options that I could do. Maybe I want to put a different background in there, so instead of it being blue, it might be a sunset. So there's plenty of options. Another option would be magic wand. And so what the magic wand does is it selects on certain areas, and as I hold the shift key, it just selects more. Now for this picture, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult, but let's say I want to select him, just the bird. I can select this area. Now I've clicked 3 times and I've got the whole background selected. So then I can just go select inverse, and now I've just got the bird and this little stump or pole that it's sitting on. So I've got that. Select inverse, press delete, and now I can move on to the next part. Pretty good. So I'm going to go back a few steps. So these are all different things that we can use on here. There's a crop tool. If I want to select a color, we've got that in Illustrator as well. There's a paintbrush tool, which we won't do too much with. Yeah, it's good. And then we've got eraser tools. We have a smudge tool. There's a lot of other things that we can work with within Photoshop. But for right now, I kind of just want to show you how to make selections on things. Now, what I want to do next is go into some other edits that you can make. So we've got, I'm going to go select inverse. So now I've just got the bird. I'm going to go edit copy, edit paste. And so now I've got the bird. So you see this. So I've got the main picture and I've got the bird here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this layer and I'm going to go image, adjustments. In fact, here, watch this. I'm going to go hide this layer and I'm just going to go image, adjustments, hue, saturation. And we can change the colors of the picture as much as we want. If I click colorize, now it makes it monochromatic, and then I can do anything I want to. If I want to boost the saturation, I can do that, make the color a little bit stronger. So I've got this. It's pretty strong. Now I've got my other picture here. Right, so this one has been unedited, so that one's pretty good. So then I can go in here, image adjustments. I can change the brightness, contrast. I can change the vibrance. I can go into levels and I can move this around and make the picture brighter, darker. I can get anything that I want to with this. Now with this picture here, I can go in and I can go image adjustments. I can go into levels just to kind of boost some of the contrast in it, maybe a little bit. And then maybe I want to give it a little hint of color, so I might go image, adjustments, hue, saturation, and I can change the colors of it a little bit. So you'll see where some of these oranges go. And so now it's got just a hint of color to it. So now I've got something that's looking like this. Now this is super overpowering. I'm not even liking this, so I'm going to get rid of this, soften it a little bit. I can still have the oranges in there, that's fine, but I don't want it as potent as it was before, so it's just a little nicer to look at. Okay, so this is kind of where I'm at right now. Now we've changed the colors a little bit. We can lighten areas, we can brighten things. We can go into, let's see here, what is this one? We can go into the brush tool, we can go into the smudge tool. So I'm going to move this over a little bit, here we go. So now if I want to, I can sponge it. And what that's going to do is it's going to desaturate part of the picture. If I want to saturate it, and I can even make it bigger. So maybe I want to brighten some of the areas up a little bit. Maybe I want to go on this side, brighten that up a little bit. I can go in here and I've got the burn tool, and the burn tool kind of burns it so we can darken some areas. And since I've already got this image here, I can do as much as I want to the background picture just to burn it and darken it a little bit. I can go into this dodge tool and I can lighten areas so you get those kind of effects. So you can see the different things that we can do with this. I can go back in here, I can smudge areas, I can blur pieces. There's so many different aspects that you can do within these designs. So if we erase it, So here's the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator 2 is when I've got something like this, so there's nothing in the background. So this checkerboard means there's nothing behind it. And down the road we'll get into what the purpose of this is. But it also kind of shows you that when you delete something here, I can delete as much as I want to, and there's nothing behind it. So that will help kind of clean up my design a little bit more later on, because if I delete it and I delete everything, now I know that there's nothing behind it except for they call the artboard. So those are just a couple of little tricks that you can kind of understand a little bit about with Photoshop. Now you can see all these different selection tools that we've walked through. There's the rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, there's the lasso tool, polygonal tool, magnetic tool, magnetic lasso, and then there's the quick selection tool and the magic wand. So we've got a couple different options for how to edit and select certain areas. So those are super important to know, because if you think about it, Illustrator has two selection tools, and it's the selection tool and the direct select tool. This gives you a lot more options. So that's kind of where we're at right now. When we started this design, if we have enough room, this is kind of where we started, and then where we're at now is much further. So hopefully that gives you a little understanding of how to work with Photoshop. And each day we're going to be doing something new and something different within Photoshop. So now you know a little bit about selection tools and how to change some of the colors. So that's a good intro. Thanks.